This is a dedicated lecture series on the science of human brain and cognitive science. Human brain is the most sophisticated and complex creation in this whole universe. Today we are going to discuss the fundamental working procedure of brain and will scientifically show you how to manage brain to live a superior life. Watch till the end without skipping. Our brain has two distinct parts. One of them is called unconscious, which is our main driving force. It is unconscious because we are not aware of this portion of our brain. Unconscious brain is continuously recording, computing and filtering environmental information in order to keep us updated with our surrounding. On the other hand, we have our own conscious brain, which is our sense of self. Though conscious brain or I seems to drive our lives, but it's completely unable to do anything without the backing of our unconscious. Now I will build up a purely scientific model of brain function, which is the heart of this lecture. Follow extremely carefully. It can change your life. Also, see it again and again by rewinding the video and try to understand the concepts clearly. The key thing to know is our brain is continuously finding tasks and trying to solve the same in most optimal way. Task means both thinking task and behavioral task, and more importantly this job is being done by your unconscious brain, not the conscious one. As I already said before, the unconscious brain is the fundamental driving force. Now let's analyze a simple task and try to see how does your brain perform this. Suppose you sitting in front of a table feel thirsty and a glass of water is kept on the table. This is a task and see what brain does to perform it. The goal of your task is to drink the water. At the very moment you felt thirsty and you saw the glass of water, your unconscious brain had already come up with the action plan to perform the task of drinking the water, which you are not even aware of. The action plan for the task consists of only two different factors. First one is your internal dependency, that is your internal resource, which is nothing but your present skill level competent to the particular task. What's the skill required to perform this task of drinking water? Nothing but two of your functioning hands. If they are fully functional then it's enough. The other factor is the external dependency, that is your competition in the external world for this particular task. Here, in this case fortunately nobody else is probably competing with you to drink the water. Right? Then essentially you have no apparent external dependency in this case, as you don't have to compete with anybody to drink the water. Once your unconscious brain records these information regarding your external and internal dependencies, it'll immediately integrate the information to derive your chance of finishing the task optimally in real time. Note here, the word real time or finite time means, the task of drinking water has to have a finite beginning and a finite end. Means, the task has to be ended in shortest possible time depending on your present skill level. In this case, as there is no essential external dependencies, the finite finishing is certain. Once that is assured, the unconscious brain will start to execute the action plan. If the glass of water is at your right side, you are most likely to pick up the glass with your right hand, same is the case with your left hand. Unconscious brain will send electrical signals to your appropriate hand to pick up the glass. Once you touch the glass, all the detailed information regarding the glass, like the weight of the glass, the circumference, the material used, the height of your mouth from the table etc., will feed back to your brain. Depending on these, brain will immediately compute the force and velocity at which the glass has to be picked up based mainly on gravity, friction and your intensity of the feeling of thirst. Your hand will grip the glass properly and pick it up and take it to your mouth and you drink the water to your heart's content. The same way your hand will keep the glass back on table after your task or thirst is over, hence the goal is fulfilled and the action execution is complete, and no further effort will be given towards this task at least for the time being until you feel thirsty again, maybe in later time. In this entire path of travel, your unconscious brain and your hand have continuously talked to each other, but you don't at all have any idea about that. Actually, the entire process has occurred in fraction of seconds so smoothly and effortlessly that your conscious mind didn't even bother to interfere. It seemed completely automatic and spontaneous. So efficient your unconscious brain is. Is not it amazing? Problem starts when everything doesn't fit together. Suppose, Unfortunately, you had broken your right or left hand and the glass is kept exactly at the corresponding side of your broken hand. In this situation, though you are thirsty enough but still will feel some annoyance as you have to pick up the glass with your wrong hand. This time, as the process is not optimal but slightly off balance, your unconscious brain will immediately throw some extra feeling to your consciousness in order to make little adjustment of stretching your body a bit, which you will perceive as annoyance. Let's see what's happening here. As the process has been disturbed a little, the action curve for the task this time will also be distorted somewhat. You have extra action to perform in order to do the job with your wrong hand, as you have to stretch your body. The extended green region at both sides of the action curve are indicating the excess action to be performed. The conscious feeling of annoyance is the direct consequence of this. See, the goal here is same. That is drinking water, so the pick of the curve is same as that of the optimal blue curve, as it is indicating the finite goal point to be achieved. Also notice two very important features of this curve. Both the beginning and end of the action curve have been distorted. It's also the direct consequence of the extra task performed. Hence, extra action results into extra feeling, that's annoyance. Hence, energy spent by the body to perform the task this way is also higher. Due to such unfavorable condition, you feel little avoidance behavior in you towards it, which was totally absent in previous case when you were using appropriate hand. Hence, we can say it's the same task being performed semi-optimally. Let's now dig deeper into the action curve in order to gain even better understanding. Any task would have corresponding action curve, as ultimately task has to be performed by means of action, right? So, action curve can be the fundamental concept to gain to perform optimally in life. Every action curve would be consisted with three ingredients. These are goal of the particular task in hand and internal and external dependencies in context of the particular task. Look at the curve. Your unconscious brain is doing something remarkable. It's doing time travel into future. Yes. See, goal is a future event, means it's not in present time at all, but still the brain is simulating the future sitting right here at the present moment and performing tasks on the basis of that so accurately. Notice, the axis through which the brain is simulating the future goal is not our real-time axis but a perceived orthogonal axis equivalent to a virtual time reference. It's setting the goal finitely somewhere on the axis and performing it in real time itself. Means, this orthogonal virtual axis is just for its own sake of simulating the world to make you navigate perfectly in this real world. Such powerful is the computation power of your brain. Once it sets the finite goal along the virtual axis, it strategically performs most optimal action to complete the task in real time. Hence, a finite action curve is generated. Look at the resulting action curve for the glass pickup with wrong hand. The net curve has become much flatter than the optimal blue inner curve. Means, it's more horizontal to the real-time axis than the blue optimal one. Also, the beginning and the end of the action curve have been stretched further. These two information defines everything abnormal happening here. Notice, at beginning, to start the action, your unconscious brain was to use the appropriate hand in order to perform the task smoothly with its previously set optimal action plan, but as the appropriate hand is not available, it immediately halted as it had to alter its resource, means the wrong hand. This is the first departure from the smoothness, as it is not at all familiar with this adjustment. Hence it throws that breaking of continuity into your consciousness as the feeling of annoyance just to gain the permission of using the wrong hand for the task, and you have granted it the permission with your full conscious awareness. You could have stopped that, but you didn't because you were thirsty and needed to drink water. Hence, you granted the permission in spite of having slight hesitation. That's your feeling of little annoyance, and that's where slight tendency of avoidance set in against the task. Like, you were somewhat less interested in picking up the glass this time than the previous optimal case where you picked up the glass without even a little involvement of your consciousness. During the entire process, this uneasy feeling continues as you were probably never familiar to perform the task with this adjustment. Hence, the task will take some extra time to make all these adjustments. That's the reason the endpoints got stretched out in real time. Hence, You will remember this event for much longer period of time than your hundreds of previous optimal drinking tasks, as you were consciously involved in the entire process. That means, the occupancy of your memory is governed heavily by your conscious actions only, not by any of your unconscious action at all. Now, let's come to the flatness problem. See, the finite goal point is same in both the cases. But time needed to achieve the same goal are different in both the cases. It's much more in semi-optimal cases. That means, in wrong-hand task you perceive somewhat reduced internal dependency. That's you feel your skill level as lower with respect to the set goal, even though the task is exactly same. Here, the explanation of flatness comes into play crucially. See, the less optimal curve, that's the outer curve, is much further distributed in real-time access. In this task of drinking water you have no time constraints. That means, you can take as much time as you need to drink water. Hence, when there is no time limit to perform a particular task, there will be more and more stretching along the horizontal axis to meet the same goal. But see, you really have to pay the price for it. As the stretching gets more and more, your unconscious brain is gradually losing track of real time and throwing more and more annoyance into your consciousness. That means you are getting more and more avoidant in doing the task, and your anxiety and frustration arise, as you are becoming more and more consciously annoyed and perceiving less and less skill to meet the same demand. Hence, the obvious point to come next is the condition, when your action curve gets completely parallel to the horizontal time axis. At that moment, it's no longer any finite curve, as it's not enclosing any area under it. At this point your unconscious brain has made you completely detached from reality. There is a catch. Though the horizontal and vertical directions are orthogonally independent to each other, but they are finite and dependent with respect to the generated action curve. That's why the action curves cut both the axis and finite intervals. Means, action curve is being constructed out of both the axes. Hence, the action curve is seeing both the axes completely finitely together until it's becoming totally flat. That's the trivial situation, as the action curve has become parallel to the real-time axis. It has totally lost the coordination between two orthogonal axes, and time passes in these two directions completely independently with respect to your action curve. That means, at the total flatness or the singular case, you're not at all forming your action curve. That means, you are sitting inactive without doing anything at all, not even starting your action. After all, how can you? Your brain hasn't mapped the task, hence it has not come up with any action plan. Whereas the time passes away continuously. Have you understood what's wrong going on? Now, I will describe the science behind stress, the meaning of stress in terms of the flatness problem, and will derive an effective scientific approach to train your brain actively to deal with all the stressors that will come in your way in different situations of life. So, keep watching. Let's take a very significant real-world task. That's suppose you are to write your job interview paper. There you will have to deal with varying degrees of external dependencies like competition, unknown environment, time constraints, etc. Notice, it's way different than the task of simply drinking water, where there was no essential external dependencies. All those factors will be pounding on you. Note that at the test hall, you are not even allowed to take any extra time in order to complete your task. Let's now analyze this task in detail. What's your goal? Getting the job, right? But here you get trapped because of your unconscious brain. Once you agreed with the goal of getting the job, your unconscious brain immediately starts trying to confirm the assurance of your goal. Means it has already started its time-traveling venture in order to assure your goal with as higher degree as it can. This task is not as simple as drinking water, where you can afford to set the goal at your ultimate success, that is drinking water, but this situation is highly different. Here you simply can't assure the success of your present goal of getting the job sitting right at the present moment. Because, there are so many external factors involved as mentioned previously, which are not at all in your control. Hence, once your goal is set to the ultimate point, Your unconscious brain will unnecessarily try to analyze all the surrounding information in detail and context of your goal in order to assure your success, but it's not possible as discussed above. Hence, the more it will try to analyze your chance of success, more it will fail to assure that. Remember, even while drinking water with wrong hand made you considerably annoyed, whereas here the situation is highly anxiety-provoking. As the unconscious brain failed to assure success, it will assume in a sense that the task is impossible. What will it do then? It'll simply be trying to dig deeper into future. It'll now try to analyze the consequences of your failing. Like, what will happen in your life if you fail? What will your wife, friends and family members think of you? Etc. See, you are already in an indefinite loop as your unconscious brain has gone into the self-contradiction. On one hand it has already assumed failure and on the other hand it is continuously trying to make you through. Is it possible ever? No, it's not. This is the classic case of maximally flat situation. Due to self-contradictory behavior, your unconscious brain has lost track of real time, it's not at all in present moment but only roaming in perceived future. In other words, your body is still staying in the real time but your mind has totally gone lost into its own virtual reality. This is the point where both the orthogonal axes flow completely independently with respect to the action curve, or more precisely your unconscious brain has failed to generate any action plan, hence no action curve as well. Now, your unconscious brain can't coordinate the two coordinate axes, that is, it's seeing time passes by but it can't produce any action out of it. Remember, in order to do finite action, your main driving force, that is your unconscious brain must have to mix the finite information from both the axes and to produce finite action curve out of it. Instead of performing task, it will continuously generate all the negative emotions like frustration, anxiety, low self-esteem into your consciousness and you will become more and more avoidant against the task, where you had to approach the task with your full potential. In this situation with respect to your goal, you are finding your external dependencies getting heavier and heavier over your internal dependency, that's your own skill. It's completely pressing you. It may so happen in this situation that, you can't even attempt a single question, thought you could do much more in normal condition. Let's hunt for the way out. The primary condition to complete any task is, you must generate your finite action curve but the action curve needs to have a finite goal, on basis of which the action curve would be generated. Right? But setting goals arbitrarily to the ultimate success would only destroy your mission rather than solving the task for you in case of real-world tasks rich in external dependencies as you just saw. Remember that it's our biological inclination to set the goal automatically to success irrespective of the nature of the task. This is done by our main driving force, unconscious mind. This is not only misleading, it's destructive. Here, you have to actively use your conscious brain to guide and train your unconscious brain along the right direction compatible with the reality. See how? What if you measure your virtual goal axis with the same stick of your real-time axis? Means, ultimately we have to live in the real time itself, so, I'm just saying to entangle the virtual goal perception axis with the real-time axis. Means, strictly don't set your goal at the ultimate success point. Rather divide the same into several small goal time intervals. Suppose, in this case of interview if the allotted time to finish your test paper is 2 hours, then set up the goal interval at each 15 minutes and set finite goals of finishing finite tasks in these small intervals. As your current goal has shifted from getting the job and has become dependent on your real-time frame, it no longer carries significant virtual characteristics. Hence, there will be absolutely no problem in completing these finite tasks. The more interval you will pass through by producing real results in each interval, the more your internal dependency will get stronger over all of your external dependencies as you are no longer dependent upon external world for your success but rather controlling the situation actively for yourself. Hence, you are living more and more in present moment rather than aimlessly roaming in future, unlike the previous case when you set the goal at the ultimate success, that is getting the job. You'll find your mind-body system completely intact, even improving on passage of the goal intervals. At last, All those finite intervals would get added up to make you achieve your goal with complete control in the entire process. Continuously try to optimize your every goal interval as much as you can. Your indication for less optimal task performance is a generation of negative emotions like anxiety, frustration or lack of confidence. Actively identify slight feeling of any of those emotions at any moment during your task cycle. Once you feel that you are losing your optimal situation and moving towards the flatness. Immediately bounce back by comparing your finite action curve and flatness curve and finding out the deficits between the two. Precisely, practice hanging with optimality and reduce flatness at your very best. Practice performing same rule in every task of your life and be the real achiever. We would like to express our extreme gratitudes to all our viewers. Be passionate and lead life scientifically on the basis of reality. Try your best to achieve these skills being shown here. We want all your dreams to come true in reality. Live with healthy mind-body system. Keep following and supporting us. Thank you all.